Welcome to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest, Darryl Stephens. He's co-founder of the Bass Parlour, and he's got a very interesting background and story. He's a creative content influencer. We're going to be talking about building startups, owning your own IP, creative rights, building a startup, entrepreneurs, and the effect that AI will have in the music industry. And I'm really happy to welcome him to the stage. So, Darryl, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me. You said a mouthful. I have a lot to dig into today with all those areas of music, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I love, like I said, I love creative artists, and I think some of the best musicians, Rihanna, Taylor Swift, they've been able to do what you are talking about. So, kind of talk about what inspired you to launch Bass Parlour, how you got into the industry, and we'll dive into it.
Sure. So I guess my journey started a long time ago. I grew up playing sports, and I played college baseball, played high school, of course, and college baseball, and then growing up, my entire focus was on being a professional baseball player. So I got drafted out of high school. When I went to college, unfortunately, I didn't get drafted out of college. But I was always, in addition to like loving sports, I always loved music. I was always a person in the neighborhood who made little mixtapes so we can play basketball and play football in the neighborhood too. So I was always a huge music lover. So when I stopped playing baseball, I kind of had to have something to replace that love. I had to have something to replace that passion. So I got really into music production. Like I went full force in music production, audio engineering. Once I finished up undergrad, I went to a school called Full Sail, which is like a recording arts school. You learn, recording arts, how to be an engineer. And when I finished that, it's almost like it's a different thing. It's like a 4-year school. I think they have master's programs here too. But at the time I went, it was more of a trade school. So you get out of there and you work either in the studio or you work, somewhere in the music industry. Luckily, I got a position in EA Sports as a sound designer. So I was able to work with a lot of the video games, the Madden games, the NCAA football games. So I did that for about 3 years and really honed my craft when it came to audio engineering and when it came to music production. I ended up leaving EA Sports and going to pursue my MBA, and went to Howard for that. And around that time, I started seeing a lot of WeWorks popping up all over the place. And so WeWork was really big all over the country, but I was in DC at the time. I would say that's a great idea, but I want to see a WeWork specifically for artists and producers. I decided to open it, but even before I decided to open up what was Bass Parlour Studios, what I did was I just threw a lot of different events for musicians in the city. So I used to invite, musicians from all around DC, what they call the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, brought them out, and then everybody would just play and showcase the music they've been working on. So I started building a really big following. I did that in DC, I did that in Atlanta, and it started building the following in those two cities. And so when I built a big enough following, I said, okay, now it's time to go ahead and open Bass Parlour Studios. So open up Bass Parlour Studios, and long story short, it was almost like a WeWork, just like I said, for artists. So we had different stations set up. You can come in. You can rent a station. You can work on your music, whether you're a songwriter, producer, artist. And then we had a recording studio in the back. And, they can work, by themselves or in teams and then go back and record the song back in the recording studio. So we started like gaining a lot of momentum in the independent music network and the independent music scene in Atlanta, and just kept building from there. We also started throwing like monthly events. And this is almost where the idea for the app came from. So these monthly events, same kind of concept, invite a lot of independent musicians around the city, and we give them an hour to create a brand new song from scratch. So we'd pair them up randomly. They didn't know each other. They were just meeting each other. Different genres. We had, alternative, hip hop, R&B, rock, a little bit of everything, acoustic. And we just pair them up randomly and then give them an hour to create a brand new song. And from that, it was just a lot of great music that came out of that. A lot of great collaborations, a lot of great music, a lot of great partnerships. And so we were just building a lot of momentum. It was a great time. But then COVID hit, and then we had to shut down the studio. So I decided, from doing those events and from running the studio, I saw how much need there was in the music community, especially the independent music community, for a place to collaborate, find collaborators, and people from all different genres, all different places around the country, and just collaborate. So we kind of pivoted. Once COVID hit, we had to shut the studio down. That's when me and my team pivoted to, okay, we're going to build an app called Bass Parlour, and then it's going to do a lot of the things that we did at the studio, but with the app, we have access to the entire world, theoretically so we can not only connect musicians in the city, now we can connect musicians around the world. And so, we've been moving forward, chugging along, and it's building this thing, ever since.
So it's interesting. So it's like a kind of a, for lack of a better term, it's Tinder for musicians and artists to come and find each other, or it's a matching, or like,
Right.
Pod Match or Uber, Lyft, Airbnb.
Very similar concept. We kind of so Tinder is like the swipe left, swipe right. We don't have like that kind of structure, but it's the same concept. We're connecting musicians, artists from around the world, and then we also just launched a contest where we incentivize them to connect and create. They can create a song, upload their song to the contest, and they win the prize for that month of the contest. So our whole brand is about collaboration. Everything's about music collaboration across genres, across cultures. That's everything Bass Parlour is about. Because I've seen firsthand the impact that can make in a music community and a community at large.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I like how you went from this music studio to an app into a more scalable business plan, which is very, very smart. And because as we know, software is eating the world. We're going to talk about AI in a little bit. One thing I'm interesting is this talking about the music industry, and especially with people can get discovered on TikTok and YouTube. What trends are you seeing in the music industry?
That's a big trend. Another big trend was a few of them. One big trend, like you said, is a lot of TikTok. Everything is, or I should say everything. A lot is influencer based. So a lot of TikTok trends, a lot of TikTok dances. If you can come up with a TikTok, either a dance or some kind of moment on TikTok, you can, or Instagram now, because Instagram kind of copy what TikTok is doing. And, also YouTube Shorts, you can go viral. And so the focus is a lot, not as much in the industry as like creating albums. So when I grew up off albums. We used to, the singles, just almost like a little teaser for the whole album. Now the single is what people are focusing on, because you can make so much money off the single, and so you can get all kind of brand deals and everything off a single that goes viral. So much of the focus, and at the same time, because you can go direct to consumer now. At the time, when I was growing up, listening to music, it was almost like a rite of passage. You almost had to go through the record labels, and you for the most part, did have to go through the record labels. Now you have independent musicians. They can go direct to consumer. They can, put their music up on Spotify. They can put it up on Apple Music, and they can create a big enough following. They won't even need a record label, So a lot of the focus is on creating a hot single, having to go viral, and then I even talk to a lot of artists who just do single after single. They don't even worry about creating whole albums anymore. They can just release a single, create another single, and release another single. So it's a lot of big changes. Not even to mention we're on the forefront of AI affecting the music industry completely. It's an interesting time to be in the music industry.
Yeah, and I love this. Individuals are learning how to leverage attention as currency, and build a personal brand, and then build a community and a following and engagement to deliver what they're offering. That product.
Singles
that you're talking about.
Right.
Huge unlock. That's a huge value unlock. Like that. When I was growing up, you had to submit applications and all this rigmarole, and you had to jump through all these hoops. And now you just basically one step is bam. You can create your. That's huge.
It is. It's huge. And I think it's it's got its positives and negatives, but overall, I like the musicians and artists period having that much power. Not having a gatekeeper where they have to go through in order to get heard. That's an option. You can still sign with a record label, with a major if you want to, but that's not the only option. You can also stay independent if you want to, and you can still have a great following just going independent. You might not have the dollars behind you for marketing, at least not initially. You might not have the marketing dollars behind you. You might not have the connections behind you, But there are a lot of successful, especially nowadays, a lot of successful independent artists who are doing a great job and making a great living doing it.
Yeah. I was reading somewhere, we'll talk about some of the alternative funding mechanisms. And, a lot of these are in the headlines in the mainstream. And, with these alternative funding mechanisms, they get a bad rap because criminals use it and scams and pumps and dumps and all these bad actors using it and using it for bad purposes. But it's interesting how you're able to, a lot of artists are issuing, different forms of tokens and tickets to their fans directly, and they don't have to go through the big, what is it, the ticket clearinghouse? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Ticket house.
Yeah.
And then basically
Live Nation.
Live Nation, taking 50% of their, their fees and just ripping artists off, which is,
you have a lot of that. You even have even outside the music industry, you have a lot of comedians doing the same thing. Like Louis C.K. I'm a fan of Louis C.K. He does the same thing where for his shows, he sells everything through his website. Even he releases his comedy specials through his website. So he just bypasses, Live Nation, Ticketmaster, because the fees are so astronomically high for for those platforms. He says, okay, because he bypasses that, he can keep his prices relatively low, in comparison to the other, other comedians at his level. There's a lot of options out there. So now, like I said, I love the fact that you can be independent. We talk about music, but there's a lot of independent, musicians, a lot of independent comedians, independent artists, writers. I mean, all the arts. It's really affecting all the arts being able to go direct to consumer now.
Yeah. So, the question is, with this huge value unlock and with Web3 coming, should artists sign with a record label or remain independent, control their intellectual property? What are your thoughts?
I think it depends on the situation, depends on the artist. There's positives and negatives to both. I think you can't be, as far as the backing, as far as like the marketing dollars that a record label can invest in you, and the connections that they built up over the years, and through all the previous artists they've had, they might be able to give you some more direction. They don't really do artist development as much as they used to, because you can build up a following on your own. A lot of times they're signing more established acts, or at least someone who has a following first. Where before it would be more, okay, we can sign you, we see some potential, we'll sign you, we'll help develop you, and then we think you'll become a star. Now they're signing more people who they are already on the track to being a star. But I don't think that record labels are going anywhere. I think the deals are changing a little bit. Now they want a cut of every piece of the revenue coming in, what they call 360 deals. So not only record sales, not only used to be only record sales, but now they want a piece of the show money. They want a piece of, and this is generally, obviously there's a lot of differences in customized deals, but generally they're asking a lot more of show money that they get for live shows, a lot more of advertising dollars that they might get with a brand deal to make up what they're lacking in the record sales. Because now you're not selling a physical record; it's everything streams and everything's streamed, and they're not making as much off streams as they did off selling the actual CD or selling the tape. So they got to make up that money somehow. But back to your original question, I got off on a little tangent. Back to your original question, I think there's positive and negatives to both. I think the money that a record label can put behind you can make you become a star a lot quicker, possibly. But at the same time, they want a bigger cut. So it's almost like the question of, if you're an entrepreneur and starting a business, should you get venture capital funding or should you not? Should you go with crowdfunding route? Should you go venture capital route? Should you self-fund it? I mean, all those are viable options, but it's I can't say overall this is what you should do. It all depends on the situation. There's some situations in music and in business where you have to get venture capital funding or angel investor funding, and there's some businesses you can't. I think the same thing where, for instance, Beyonce, she wouldn't be nearly as big if she tried to be an independent artist, because she has the backing of a record label. But so to get on that level, I think that a record label, they can just flood so much money into your career. It's going to be hard to compete with that. But even in her case, she's got a situation now for herself where she can have her own label, sign her own people, and then she can do her own thing when it comes to that. But to answer your question, I can't say you should do this or should do that. Everything is different. Some people in positions where I need those money. I need to have a budget so I can get producers, so I can get an engineer. And some people don't need that budget. They're already making enough from, album sales, merch sales, whatever it is like that. So this, like I said, there's positives and negatives to both.
Yeah. I'm questioning if you know anybody in the industry, like big time, that made it big without, the backing of a record label. I mean, the closest example I could give is like Mr. B for YouTube. He's not a musician, but somebody similar, or most of the big people are backed by the big record label companies. Do you know any?
The biggest one I think of is I forgot his name. He always wears the number 3 hat. Something the rapper. I forgot his name. It'll come back to me. But he's from Chicago, and he's an independent. He's a hip hop artist. Really good artist. I keep forgetting his name. Something the rapper.
Is it Chance the Rapper?
Chance the Rapper. That's what it is. Chance the Rapper. Yeah. So he's the biggest independent artist that I know about. He has a huge following, of course. He does his own thing, and that's there's a lot of local. He's more of a national level independent artist. There's a lot of local artists that are really big in cities. That's the biggest one that I can think of off the top of my head is Chance the Rapper.
Yeah. I also find Tyler Perry. He's based out of where you're in Atlanta.
Atlanta, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And he basically shunned. He didn't want to be part of the traditional production studio, so he created his own. And he's actually doing much better than a lot of. He's just a big time mogul there. So
yeah, absolutely, and that's what you see a lot with like a lot of independent artists. If they can make it to a certain level, then they keep so much more equity in their own business. They keep so much more on their ownership and their own revenue. They don't have to slice that pie so many times. So like with him, he started out doing plays. So I'm a big. I remember back when, this is a long time ago, like 20 years ago, back when I used to have dreads. So in my hair. She used to watch the Tyler Perry plays, and I was like, what's this about? Because I used to, and this is back when they had VHS. They put the VHS with the DVD in and watch the plays. Next thing I know, he had a movie, the Medea movie. And I was like, that's the same guy from the plays that I saw, on VHS. And now he has a whole compound here in Atlanta, like a whole huge production studio. He owns the whole thing. So it's just like, it took him a longer time to get there because he had to, invest his own money and build from plays to movies and everything like that. But when he got to the top, now, he calls the shots. He doesn't have any kind of, anybody over him telling him what he can do. He can produce his own stuff. He can write his own scripts. He can do anything he wants to because he owns his brand.
Yeah.
So that's the upside of being independent. In this case, movies and plays, but it's the same concept with music,
Yeah, there is a lot of value in brand ownership and owning your intellectual property. It's this question of ownership versus renting. And I know Oprah did the same thing. She basically launched her own network and calling her own shots as well. I want to talk about this intersection of AI, because AI is huge in this generative art and generative music, and you can actually create avatars and different musicians. You can create a musician that can mimic your sounds. Talk about how it's going to affect the music industry, entrepreneurship, creative industry, etc.
Well, in a lot of ways, I'll start with music. In music, we just saw about a year ago where the AI mimicked a Drake Weekend song, and it went viral and it became kind of a hit until they took it off. And it sounded a lot like Drake and a lot like a lot like The Weeknd. What I foresee happening is license out their voice. That's the next thing. That's the next step I see. So if I'm a writer and I can write, I can if there's a program or something like that or whatever it is, a platform I'll say that's built where I have a series of different artists that all license their voice out. Whatever I write for that AI, they get a cut of that, even if they get the majority of that. I wrote the song. I can have AI sing the song that I wrote. It can be a hit, and then the artist get a cut of it. I get a cut of it. So I foresee a huge rise of songwriters because if I can license out, let's say Taylor Swift, and I can write a song. If I'm a good songwriter, I can write a song, and I can use her voice And everything she's getting a cut of it. Everything is legal. It's good for the artist. It's good for the songwriter. It puts more content out there. There's no doubt. So that's one way I see. That's a huge way I see the music industry going. It's like this rise of writers. Not to mention like more songs for like producers is another thing in hip hop. Producers are the ones that make the backing track or the instrumental track. AI creating the actual beats. Like it's going to change. It's going to change everything. Eventually, I think it could get to a point where we can write its own songs. I don't know. I think it's a little farther out. If it gets to that point, I mean, why would record labels even sign humans at that point? You might as well just get an AI. You can image somebody. AI can build a character to look like a human being, create the music. They can model the voice after any artist they want to model. Just feed it enough input. So if they can start writing the songs themselves, then it will be a complete game changer.
Yeah, I think the moment we have a AI celebrity, either that goes mainstream, that's a Skynet moment. And just this, with for example, like Tesla and Amazon, they now have robots. Like humans that don't want to work or they want to strike. And with now with robots as well, and like with this Hollywood strike, I think there was a writer's strike or whatever.
Yeah,
now,
right.
If these studios created AI avatars that could be celebrities, then you don't need the human element anymore, which is like, it's kind of like decimated the whole acting industry. You can basically create them, from computer generated.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. And to my understanding, that was like the biggest holdup in the negotiations with the writers was the AI portion of it. And so that's scary. That is scary because I always thought, like in the past, like even 2 years ago, I thought, well, AI can do a lot, but they'll never be able to mimic human creativity. But they can mimic, and I'll say mimic, just being kind of vain from a human perspective. It wouldn't really be mimic if they can have their own, if they can create on their own.
Yeah,
that's scary. That's a scary thing,
Yeah,
that's a whole different realm.
Yeah, exactly. Fascinating discussion. I love this. I'm always interested in the trends and what's going on and keeping abreast and talking to people on the leading edge. How can people contact you, follow you, reach out to you, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So follow me on Instagram at Bass Parlour. That's BA. You keep up with everything. I have showcases. We have a weekly or monthly. We have a lot going on. We have a YouTube show where we pair up musicians who never worked together and record the process of them creating a brand new song together. We call it the Bass Parlour Mashup. So follow me on Instagram at Bass Parlour. Also go to the website Bass. If you want to email me at Darryl DARRYL at Bass Parlour. And I look forward to hearing from you all.
Yeah, definitely. And check out Darryl's YouTube channel. We have a growing YouTube channel as well. Check that out.
Absolutely.
And he's all over socials. All those resources will be in the links and show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me. I love the conversation.